We'll be there. All right. Look the right way. Open up. The theme for this week is I survived. Lisa survived. We took the 3 grandsons by ourselves to Washington, D.C. last week and just got back at 6 o'clock last night. So kind of been on the run all week. Okay. This is, triumphant's not the right word, but triunion maybe, I don't know. But there's, in this series of lessons on in knowing your adversary, Satan, there's 3 areas that kind of stand out together. We've talked about 2 of them so far, which is Satanism and witchcraft, and this is the 3rd group of this section. It deals with magic, and it kind of is a bridge between these three areas. I equate it more with Satanism and witchcraft. And to the next section we'll be talking about, which is demons next week, Lord willing, demon possession. But just from the standpoint that magic gets more into, the idea of maybe inflicting evils upon people. But for the most part, it's similar in vein to the other 2 items, Satanism and witchcraft. When you look at all 3 of these, they share the following similarities. Number 1 is the pursuit of the fleshly nature of mankind without constraints. So that's the idea, is to throw off constraints and proceed with your fleshly desires and no inhibitions at all. The second one is a secret alliance, or there's a key that you need to understand with the natural things. Okay, so if you get that key, you understand the natural, then you've got your Satanism that lines up, you've got your witchcraft which lines up, and this morning what we'll talk about is the magic. You're able to do the magical things, right? And then there's also, with both the others, with the blending in of religious practices from history, as well as you're seeing a lot of the ideas from these creep into the ideas in the church, some ideas in the church, particularly if you're dealing with some denominational type doctrines, you see a lot of this idea prevalent from magic. Well, what about today? Is this something from ancient history? How many of you have seen Harry Potter? Okay, yeah, there's been a few, right? Is he real? Is he real or is he fake? Is it fiction or is it true? Do we really face it in the world today? Is this something that is infiltrating the church? And I think the answer to all 3 is yes, it is. We'll look at the Bible, and the Old Testament particularly. We notice that magic's been around for a long time. We'll go back to Pharaoh's court. We'll actually do a little study from that this morning and see that it existed when the 10 plagues happened to Egypt. Harry Potter. Yeah, I know it's fictional. Most of us adult people know it's fictional, but a lot of people just drop off their kids to the theater, send them in to go in and watch the shows as a babysitting service. They don't talk to them about God. They don't talk to them about reality. And the kids see what's on the screen, they come back out, and they've got these ideas that, hey, if I can get that magic wand, I can do things. Or perhaps if I figure out the code, the secret that exists, I go to Hogwarts school or whatever the school is called, I can do that magic. And they get caught up in these ideas. And so it becomes real to them, even though it's a fictional idea. And magic as a sect. Well, yeah. We see some of the concepts being adopted more into practices and writings, etc., but not necessarily as a branch of the church, so to speak, but you do see it. I guess the first thing we want to do today, we want to define magic. We want to look at the history of magic, look how it has evolved or hasn't evolved. Is it the same magic today that it was back then? I'd like to look at it in the Old Testament, what it was like in the Old Testament. Discuss some modern ceremonial practices of magic, and then look at the Bible's teaching on magic, particularly if it is a concept that can coexist with New Testament teaching and can even be practiced by the church. Well, before we begin, what is magic? When I say magic, what do you think of? Pardon? Make-believe, yeah. Pick a card, right? Yeah. Pull the rabbit out of the hat, yeah, or the flowers out of the sleeve, yeah. How about Houdini? Okay, he's a magician, right? He's bind him however you want to bind him. He'll escape in 10 seconds or whatever it is, yeah. That was his claim to fame. Yeah, maybe pulling a quarter from the ear, that type of stuff. But yeah. Are you reading my notes? Yeah, David Copperfield. Actually, Jerry's not in here, but Jerry actually got some time to talk to Jerry Manning. He worked at Kodak, and some of the things that some of the projects they worked on was some of the illusions that David Copperfield did. Yeah, engineered, and he could kind of share some light into it. So that's in the field of magic too. Yeah, that's in the field of magic. Yeah. There's actually a movie called The Illusionist from 2006. There's an Eisenheim guy who's a magician. He starts out with these sleight of hand tricks that we've been talking about, and the common folk don't understand how they do it. This orange tree. How does he make this orange tree grow and all that stuff? Ultimately, it becomes a raucous crowd, and they're shut down. He's shut down. So it's just a trickster type thing, right? He's doing a sleight of hand thing, but the plot of the story, obviously, there's a love interest that's going on. So he develops this plan to fake her death. And then he opens up his theater again, and it's more sinister now, more darker, deeper type things, because he starts bringing up these people who are from the dead, okay? He doesn't say they're from the dead, but the audience assumes they're from the dead, right? And then ultimately he brings up his love interest, who supposedly was killed by the crown prince, right? And incites the crowd into believing that she was killed by the crown prince. And that's kind of what we're talking about, the ability to move crowds through trickery, to give allegiance to type of things that are fake, but really, what's the word I'm looking for? Treat things more, take it out of the realm of entertainment and make it more of in terms of reality type idea. Yeah. Well, that's exactly. Webster looks at it as an extraordinary power or influence. It's seemingly from a supernatural force. In other words, you're able to trick people into it. It's not just that I know how to do this trick. It's more like I've got the ability to do this trick. Someone's blessed me with this talent, okay? And it comes supernaturally, and I can control the elements of nature through what I do. There's 4 basic categories of magic. Sympathetic, okay? Not sure why it's called that, but when you think of voodoo, witch doctors or shamans, that's the type of sympathetic magic we're talking about. It relies heavily upon the confidence of persons to be effective. In other words, their gullibility, that they believe that you've got the voodoo doll and you stick the pin in and it's going to hurt my shoulder. It's going to cause pain. It works only on devout believers. It has no effect on disbelievers. You see a lot of that in the movies, a lot of the sympathetic type magic in movies. Contagion. Okay, you've heard of contagious diseases, right? Contagion magic. It relies upon actual physical contact with the objects. It could be that you're actually touching it. Could be, oh no, I looked at it, type idea. Now I'm going to be cursed because I looked at the thing I shouldn't have looked at. Again, this is from the primitive cultures. Physical contact's necessary to commute evil or good powers. They may apply leaves of sacred plants to somebody, and or bathing in a special pool. Pool Siloam? Okay. Yeah. And special healings occur because of that. Again, just like sympathetic magic, it's dependent on the believers having a devout belief that once they do that thing, they physically do that thing, it happens to them. Esoteric magic depends on comprehension of the secrets of the universe. We'll talk a little bit later about this Jewish idea of Kabbalah as one example. We'll go into that a little bit more, but anyway, that's you figure out what the things are in the universe, how they work together, how they fit together, and that's esoteric magic. Ceremonial magic is kind of similar to that, except that you're able to do a ceremony and it opens up the door, okay, so that you're able to go into and do the magic that you want to do and accomplish that. People really don't believe this, do they? Okay, yeah, they do, actually. Primitive cultures exhibit a strong belief in magic as a means of controlling their environment. There's many primitive cultures that recognized either a medicine man or a shaman for his knowledge and powers for controlling harmful spirits. There were two methods of operations. One was what we talked about a little bit last week, is the mana, or mana, M-A-N-A, okay? And that's an impersonal, powerful force that exists in the inanimate objects. In other words, they really have life just like you and I do. It's a force that's within them. The witch doctor, the shaman, or whoever is able to see that, contact that force, and bring it out and solicit the magic. The other idea is that they wear these special amulets, special devices that opens up them into to the understanding of the power of nature that exists. They believe in animism. Yeah. This podium is alive. There's a spirit in it. I touched it. Oh no. Hopefully it's a good spirit. They believe in, should learn to pronounce these words, fetishism, tongue-tied. Let's try it this way. Supernatural powers resided within particular objects. You might remember the idea of the crystal rock. Seen the Indiana Jones, the crystal head thing? Yeah, that idea, that the three rocks, you put them together, they have special powers, right? And that is how, I guess you would say, magic started, the idea behind it. Mystery religions that evolved later as a refinement of life-giving powers in nature. Ancient Greece, they had two, the Illusionists and the Orpheans. Both stressed strict observance of sect rules and myths for explaining the universe, the world, and man's relationship to it. Greek magical rituals date from around the 2nd century BC to the 2nd century AD. Yes? Yeah, there was. That the yeah, I really wasn't intending to go in that area, but no, that's a good idea. Yeah, does that fall into magic or witchcraft or what? But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They believe that the gall that he drank had some municipal power. Borrow from a book that I've read, Ghost Dance Messiah. It relates to the Indian tribes in the U.S. One of the guys that developed that ghost dance that incited rebellion supposedly died like Christ did. And the way he did it was to use this drug that lowered his breathing to a point where you could really not perceive it. Now, I think with today's medical technology, they hook him up, they could tell he's still breathing and all that. But some people said that the gall did that to Christ. He didn't really die, but Christ died. Several Egyptian papyri contain rituals designed to evoke powers of the spirit world and redirect them on man's behalf. Papyri mixed Eastern magic and Greek philosophy. They used traditional words from the Bible, like Adonai, which means Lord, or Elohim, which means God. Talked about Michael and Gabriel. I'd like for us to turn to Exodus chapter 7, verses 8 through 13. Exodus 7, verses 8 through 13. I didn't quite really know where to fit this into this lesson, but I thought we'd fit it in here since we talked a little bit about Egyptian magic. The point I just read and talked about from traditional words from the Bible and so forth, that's later on in time. But the Egyptians practiced magic at the time that the Israelites were enslaved to them. And one of the plagues here, well, it wasn't even before the plague. Yeah, one of the things that God gave Moses as a sign was that Aaron was to throw down his rod. And what did his rod become? A serpent. Guess what? The magicians could do it also. They threw down their rods, and they became serpents, okay? And what happened to their serpents? Aaron's rod ate it up and Aaron's serpent ate up their serpents. But Pharaoh's heart, he'd already been hardened. He'd already seen the magic, this is just a trick like my magicians could do. And that's what we're going to read from, verses 8 through 13. And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh, before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. Okay, so Aaron does the trick. He calls his magicians. Hey, he's throwing this serpent down, right? You read commentators, I think they came up with a snake that if you touch it, it sits still, and when you throw it down, it becomes, I don't know whether it's true. I think they just had them up their sleeves and throw them out. Okay, that's my opinion. But anyway, they were able to do the trick. And so Pharaoh's heart was hardened. His magicians could do it. He knows they're doing it by sleight of hand. They're not truly powerful. Maybe he does believe it. But it's the same trick that Aaron's doing. He disregards it, the magic. How about verse 22, the first plague? What was the first plague on Egypt? Turn the water to blood. All right. Could the magicians do it? Yes, they could. They had the dye in their sleeve or whatever, or maybe even a vessel of blood that they could pull out, right? Turn the water red, make it appear as blood, or turn it actually into blood. Chapter 8, verse 7, we have the plague of the frogs. They could bring the frogs to life as well. Okay, they could create frogs. I looked all over the verse last night, kind of looking for it, but there was one passage in there that talks about the fact that they could bring them forth, but they couldn't get rid of them. And I forget which one it is. But now we're up to Exodus chapter 8, verses 16 through 19. And this is the lice, plague of the lice, okay? How did the plague of the lice work? Yeah. What happened? They became lice. So all Aaron did was strike the dust, and it became lice, okay? There's no throwing things down. There's no, it's just dirt. He strikes it and it becomes a lice, okay? Could the magicians do that? No. And here's their response. Verses 16 through 19. Well, we'll read the whole thing. The Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in men and in beasts, and all the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice upon man, upon beast. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, ha, this is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. Thought I'd just throw this in as extra points. Chapter 9, verse 11. Okay. What's happening here? Moses took the ashes from the furnace, right? Stood before Pharaoh, threw them up in the air, okay? The ashes became boils upon men, okay? They came breaking out, okay? As boils and blains, whatever you want to call it, upon man and beast. Verse 11 says, and the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. Okay? They want to fight with God, they're going to lose. Because they're using trickery, they're using sleight of hand. God is creator. He's the powerful one. He's the Almighty. That's an important point to remember as we're going to finish up here with the historical aspect, and we get into the modernist type ideas. But that's important to remember, because what magicians try to do, the art of magic tries to do, is to bring into the idea that God's not really, you don't really need him. You really need to just concentrate on nature and follow nature, and you get blessings and things that happen to you. Well, let's talk about the Celtic, thinking I'm in Boston, the Celtic priest, the Druids, okay? They're around the 2nd century BC, also to the 2nd century AD. Hope I didn't type in the wrong time frame, but they mixed in astrology with their magic. Stonehenge, you know what that is? A bunch of rocks, yeah. Yeah, it depends on which show you read on and watch on the History Channel, whether it's religious, whether it's design, okay. But the idea there was they try to set up the stones in such a way that they can interpret the position of the moon and bring to life control of their environment to explain the phenomenon that happened in the environment. King Arthur, was he real? Was he fake? Who was King Arthur? How did he come to power? Where did he get his might? From the sword. Who gave him the power to pull the sword out? The Lady of the Lake, right? Okay. You have Merlin. Who's Merlin? He's a wizard, a magician, right? Yeah. You have all these tales that existed during that time. Excalibur, which was a sword, the Lady of the Lake, numerous great magical deeds done by Sir Lancelot, Sir Gawain, and Sir Galahad, and so forth. The German nomads and Scandinavian Vikings, they reverenced Lucky Charms. That's a cereal, right? No. Rabbit's foot? No one has a rabbit's foot, right? Don't tell me you got. No, I'm just kidding. The Lucky Rabbit's foot, that came from them, right? Yeah. They have charms. The rabbit's foot, what else did they have? They, stones, shells, claws, herbs, all those type of things. The Alchemists, I love this. They believed in the 4 elements of the earth. 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. They sought ways to change base metals into gold. So you could take a tin can, well, they didn't have tin cans then, but a piece of iron, put it in this liquid emulsion or whatever, and stir it up, and guess what happened? It became gold. Okay, they tried to do that. Okay, that's some of the things they did. They searched for the elixir of life. Prolong life, get rid of disease. If you just find the right mix of herbs and so forth, you had it made. Okay, you create the tree of life. There's this guy, Harun al-Rashid. He's a Muslim alchemist who lived about 800 AD, and he used alchemy, incantations, and exorcisms to effect change in the environment. As I studied for this lesson, this next one kind of caught me by surprise at first, and then as I read more about it, I started saying, I know somebody like this. There's Judaism around the 12th century BC believed in Kabbalah. And that's arcane knowledge and ritual is what it's based on. You have 3 books that they look at. The book of Moses, the law of Moses. They have the Talmud. And the 3rd book is what they call the book of Kabbalah. It's a complete system of magic, symbolism, reincarnation, messianism, and demonology. Didn't know it at the time. I had a guy that worked for me in New York. He called himself a modern Jew. What's that mean? I worked with a lot of Jews in New York. I was in the garment district, so most people there were Jewish that I worked with. But he had an interesting take. He didn't believe in hell, but he did believe in some of these things. Demon possession was one of the things, and so forth. Reincarnation, he believed in that. Okay. He was a Jew. He believed in Christ, actually. We talked about it on numerous occasions. He combined Kabbalah combined Christian mysticism and occultism together. The Doctrine of God. These are Jews. Okay, the Jews were taught from day one that there's one God. Okay, but here's this Doctrine of God that they come up with. Okay, they contrast the one God. They really don't believe He exists. He's hidden and revealed in gods of religion. In other words, it takes humility, piety, asceticism, and once you get all that together in the right formula, it leads to the hidden gods. You're able to understand these other gods. Their tree of life is not a tree in the garden with the fruit hanging from it. It's 10 spheres of emanations through which God revealed Himself. In other words, you get all the spheres together and you find out who God truly is. Okay? I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining to you who these people are. Okay? These are the people that were in Palestine. Okay? AD 70, the Roman army destroys Jerusalem. Guess what happens? What happens in AD 70? Jerusalem's destroyed. All the records are destroyed. What else has happened? The temple's destroyed. Where are they going to worship? Who are they going to worship? They turn to this. Okay, not everybody, but some of them turn to this stuff. They develop this other religion that's totally against what they've been trained with, what they've been led throughout their entire existence. Okay, he's not God anymore, he's God's. Okay, and to get to know him, you don't go through the priest or the scriptures. The priest doesn't exist anymore, right? So you go through this understanding of these 10 spheres of this tree of life. And that's how you arrive at who God is. Pardon?
If they turn to these things that were not God, weren't some of them destroyed?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Memory and started all over again?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Bible was always preserved. The scriptures were always preserved. But yes. Oh, yeah. No, there's no question about this. This is about 1,100 years after the destruction of Jerusalem that they come up with these ideas, formulated into a religion. It serves as a warning to us. We need to keep our focus in the Word of God and read it, understand it, and obey it, and not try to look outside and bring in other thoughts. And next thing you know, you find yourselves in another religion that's completely foreign to what God has asked you to do. Israel, all creation, and even God included in the fall and needed salvation. That's the thing they developed. They developed a secret system of philosophizing the inner story of creation, of the universe, man's relationship to the universe and to God. Okay. All right, let's talk about the medieval magic. Exploited the secrets of the universe for the benefit of oneself. They developed two origins of this knowledge. Black magic. Where'd black magic come from? Satan, right, Satan. White magic. Who gave you white magic? God, divine, right? So you had two things set up. You know, you had the white magic, which it came from God and reading and understanding the signs that he's given you in nature. The other black magic, you got that from serving Satan and getting it from him. A lot of these ideas, secrets came, and white magic came from divine origin, black magic, secrets provided by Satan. A lot of these you see the ideas from medieval, can't even say it, I give up. The Middle Ages, magic, okay? Actually see that in presence in magical ideas today, the things that people believe today. Here's some societies that emerged from this. The Rosicrucians. They combined Protestant theology and occult philosophy. F.A. Mesmer, around 1734 to 1835, he developed this animal magnetism idea. They called them mesmerians. I can't even say it. But they believed in a relationship of magnetism of curing diseases within the body, and he practiced it in Paris. Aleister Crowley, okay, 1875 to 1947. He reveled in the cult secrets and became leader of the Order of Templars, East. He dubbed himself the Beast 666. Yeah, and lived by the motto, do what thou wilt. Occult studies led him deeper into magic practice and the use of sex magic to attain mental perfection. So he's bringing in complete, total giving in. His writings and lectures greatly influenced the modern revival of occultism in the West. And a lot of his books and articles are being reprinted today. As soon as I mention the name, you're going to know it, but Ozzy Osbourne, okay? He has a song, Mr. Crawley. And I thought I'd go ahead and read the lyrics to it. Mr. Crawley, what went on in your head? Oh, Mr. Crawley, did you talk to the dead? Your lifestyle to me seems so tragic with the thrill of it all. You fooled all the people with magic. Yea, you waited on Satan's call. Mr. Charming, did you think you were pure? Mr. Alarming, in nocturnal rapport, uncovering things that were sacred, manifest on this earth, conceived in the eyes of a secret, and they were scattered, and they scattered the afterbirth. Mr. Crawley, won't you ride my white horse? Mr. Crawley, it's symbolic, of course. Approaching a time that is classic, I hear that maiden's call. Approaching a time that is drastic, standing with their backs to the wall. Was it polemically sent? I want to know what you meant. I want to know what you meant. Yeah. Okay. Well.
Pretty strange that Ozzy Osbourne's talking about somebody else's weird lifestyle.
It is. It is. And what you know about Ozzy Osbourne is that sometimes he was the Prince of Darkness, right? And he's also a member of the England Church of England or whatever. So he waffles between the two, okay? And this happens to be the time that he was somewhat sort of religious. Unfortunately, the song that he, I think, intended to be a questioning of magic from Crowley actually has become an anthem of sorts to those who believe in magic and practice it. That Mr. Crowley actually had the secret, and we need to find out what he meant. So they play his records backwards to figure it. No, just kidding. Okay, let's talk about, wow, sorry, okay. Ceremonial practices. They view the universe philosophical as a colossal organism. Okay, that's the macrocosm, chasm, right? Cosm. And man is a miniature organism, microcosm. So for us to seek to discover the relationships between the various aspects of creation, animals, jewels, etc., with the respective counterparts within the human being. Okay, the goal is to find the right relationship. Does the lion represent my arm? Or, does the hawk represent my mind? Those type things. Get the right, match up properly, figure out the right key, the right designation. Each person is different. Each person is unique. Okay? Magicians break from restraint and reason. They're influenced by Gnosticism. Okay? Good and evil do not exist. They value self as the highest entity in the world. Once I find myself, I understand, I know how life is. Yes, I am my own God. Ceremonial magic has 6 distinct acts. There's the consecration of the circle. It's about 9 feet in diameter. Items are placed around the circle and also outside the circle. Okay? It's important how you place the items. Okay? Ritual preparations, there's chants. They're designed to excite the senses. Then there's the invoking of the spirits, so what they call a spiritual trance. It's akin to frenzy. Okay, then you have the descent of the Spirit. Okay, that's when the divine spirits appear. They're going to give you the things. Then you have the magical work. Magician actually then leaves his body, right, and communes with the spirits. Okay, and then after you have this whole thing done, then there's the dismissal part where the spirits are allowed to leave. Okay, magic in the Bible. Where to begin? Obviously, those magical elements that make God less than the supreme ruler of the universe and or attribute to him, or attribute sin to him, are completely opposed in the Scriptures and cannot exist within the Christian's life. Anything that says God is not God is not compatible with God. Okay? It's false. Luke chapter 1 verse 49 says, "Holy is thy name." Psalms 111 verse 9 adds the word reverend, and holy is thy name. Psalms 71 verse 19 says, "Thy righteousness also, O God, is very high, who has done great things. O God, who is like unto thee?" Leviticus 19:12, God is not to be profaned. And from James 1:13, we know that God does not tempt men with evil, neither can he be tempted with evil. This idea about God falling in creation did not happen. It's false. There are no secret things which are essential that can be known. You can try to figure out all these things that have been hidden, but all that's necessary for us has been revealed to us. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 29 says, "The secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do the works of the law," the words of this law. Matthew chapter 10, verse 26 says, Fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 10, "But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God." 2 Peter 1, verse 3. This is the only verse I could have used. "According as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us unto glory and virtue." Everything that we need has been provided for us. It's in the book. Read it. Follow it. Start to go into 1 Peter and talk about how that the apostles received it from the Spirit. They passed it on to us. You know those things. Magic secularizes man. Galatians 3:3, Paul asks a rhetorical question. "Are you so foolish, having begun in the Spirit, are ye now made perfect by the flesh?" Okay. We left the body, right? We became Christians to get rid of the fleshly desires and the lust of the flesh, right? And now we're saying that the flesh is what makes us pure? No. 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 22 and 23 describes how how returning back to sin is like a sow returning to the mire, or a dog to rolling in its own vomit. Jude chapter 10 says, "But what they know naturally as brute beast, in those things they corrupt themselves." Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, "We are created for good works." First bell. Okay. We'll go to, let's turn over to Galatians chapter 5, verses 16 through 21, and we'll stop here. Got a lot more to cover, but we'll stop here. Okay. They're here somewhere. There they are. Here's Paul's writing to the Galatians. After he asks the rhetorical question, are you now made perfect by the works of the flesh? He comes over here in chapter 5 and begins this thought. "This I say, then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary to the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. But if ye be led of the Spirit, you're not under the law." Okay. Now right away, from the Scriptures, we're told doing fleshly things won't help your spirit. It's anti-spirit, right? Okay. Verse 19. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, and heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revellings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Can't be more plain than that. Okay. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with affections and lust. If we walk in the Spirit, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not be desirous of vain glory, provoking one another, envying one another. At the end, the result is read God's Word, live it. Don't get absorbed in these things that glorify fleshly desires and such. Next week, Lord willing, we're going to be talking about demons, possessions, okay? Not what they possess. Well, I guess what they possess. They possess us, right? Whether they possess us or not. But we'll talk about demons. Linda Blair. Think about her.